Hey guys, it's Opinion, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the current ongoing general offensive on the Russian side in the Russia-Ukraine war. Just a quick reminder, 95% of the people watching my videos are not subscribed, so remember to subscribe. I'll be splitting this into four different parts. The first one is the Kherson region, followed by the Zaporizhya, then Donbass, and finally Kharkiv. Start off in the Kherson region, there are reports of fighting around the northeastern part of Mykolaiv, where the Russian forces are trying to capture this road that leads up to Mykolaiv, while at the same time defending their flanks against the Ukrainian counterattack. The way that they are planning this attack is to basically keep the Ukrainian forces busy here in the Kherson region while they conduct offensives in other regions. In Zaporizhya, there is a general offensive that started where they have started bombarding and shelling the front line heavily the past few days. This is to keep the Ukrainian defenders in place and then launch an offensive once their defenses have been broken down enough, as they do on the other fronts. As for the Donbass front, I'm going to be splitting it up to four parts: southwestern Donetsk, central Donetsk, Bakhmut front, and Siversk front. As for southwestern Donetsk, their main focus is around Vuhledar and Volvesnovosilka, where the Russians are trying to attack both at the same time and capture both at the same time. This is to allow them to advance towards the highway that connects from the west to Marinka. This will allow them to cut off the supplies that goes into the Donetsk front and allow them to make use of this flat and hard terrain as it is now. If they wait another month, it will start to be muddy and it will be more difficult for them to use their heavy weapons outside of these roads. So to avoid the mines and to allow them to make a successful offensive, it's important that they do it right now, which is why they have a heavy focus on this area. As for the Donetsk front itself, they are conducting offensives on every one of the Ukrainian fortresses in the area. They're currently focusing mainly on Krasnohorivka, as it will allow them to go around Avdiivka and make an operational encirclement by reaching this area, forcing them down one road and continuously advancing towards them, while protecting their flanks by attacking Pisky and then following that attack by attacking Opytne and Volodane from the western side, which will keep the Ukrainians in place as they continuously harass the Ukrainian defenders around Avdiivka. While further south, they are trying to get rid of the Ukrainian defenders in Pisky and Marinka, and the way they're doing that is by coordinating this offensive with the southwestern offensive by trying to cut off the Ukrainian supply lines here in the southwest. While at the same time, we have this main supply of rail supply line going from Pokrovsk to Pisky. They are also trying to flank this by going around it and cutting it off further up northwest. As you can see, this whole area is without any villages, which will be easier for the Russians to advance through and cut off the rail line that goes down to Pisky. Which will allow the Russians to push out the Ukrainian defenders in this defensive line, cutting them off from the offensive on Avdiivka. Further up north in the Bakhmut front, the Russians are currently advancing through this road to the south of Bakhmut to conduct an offensive south of it in coordination with the northern offensive and the eastern offensive, trying to advance to the river and circling around the valley through the south to make sure that they can cut off the Ukrainian artillery in Chasiv, while at the same time conducting an offensive on taking Bakhmut, which will allow them to conduct offensive on the final defensive line of the Donbas region, which is Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, Konstantinivka. As for the Siversk front, they are currently conducting an offensive on the whole front, as they are both attacking Horelivka, Siversk, Verkhnokamiansk, Ivanodarivka, and Yalivka. This is Yakulivka. This is as they are trying to separate the Ukrainian defenders and prevent them from coordinating with each other, which allows them to push all of them at the same time and keeping them in their area, so that the Ukrainians don't give up on Siversk to defend Bakhmut, but instead get caught in this cauldron, which will allow them, once they take Bakhmut, to go through this highway to cut off the Ukrainian defenders in the salient. Now, as for the Kharkiv region, it's going to be about Izyum and Kharkiv itself. First, in Izyum, there's a general offensive on this southeastern side, and there's the offensive around Horelivka. The point of Horelivka is to cut off this incursion the Ukrainians have close to Izyum and defend the flank of it to make this offensive safe. As for the Kharkiv front, it's split up into two, Izyum and Kharkiv itself, where in Izyum they are conducting a general offensive while at the same time attacking Husarivka. The point of attacking Husarivka is to cut off this incursion the Ukrainians have into the back of Izyum and protect the flank as to prevent the Ukrainians from conducting a pincer moves, cutting off Izyum from the supplies. And also to make sure that the Russians will be able to achieve the goal with this flank, which is first to cut off Bervinkov, which will make it difficult for Ukrainians to send troops and forces from Kharkiv to Donbas or from Dnipro to Donbas, forcing them to go down to Pokrovsk, and at the same time making sure that the Russians will be able to counteract the Ukrainian reinforcements as they have to go back to Belgorod, to Beluvki, and then down to Izyum to reinforce their forces here, or go all the way around to arrive at Solidar here in the southeast to prevent the Ukrainians from entering Siversk or Bakhmut in defense of it, which will take much longer than what it takes to go down from Kharkiv to Losova, and then finally at Sloviansk, to then go through the highway or follow the train rails to Bakhmut itself. While at the Kharkiv front, their main objective is to keep the Kharkiv forces locked in the area, and at the same time they are coming with new forces from Belgorod to conduct a stronger offensive, forcing the Ukrainians to defend Kharkiv instead of sending reinforcements to the Donbas region. So all in all, it's a major offensive throughout the whole front line, and they're going to be focusing on making a breakthrough and then making use of that breakthrough, as in they have their front line and then they have a second batch of troops that is concentrated. Once they see a breakthrough, they will make use of it by going down to it and pouring all their extra reserve troops in it to make the most use of it. For example, if Wuladar falls, they will be able to send troops here to go around and pincer both Marinka and attack Kherson to Neopol, forcing the Ukrainians to fall back from here, which will allow them to send more troops down Marinka, flanking to Selidove, something like this. And I'll draw it to make it easier to tell. Going down here, and at the same time pincer attack here to force them to fall back, which will allow the Russians to go through and pincer this, and then they'll continue on until the whole front line is collapsed, which will allow the Russians to pass through the heavily fortified area that is the point of contact that has been fortified for the past 8 years, which will then allow them to further push on against Pokrovsk, which is the main supply route for the Ukrainians into the Donbas region. If they take both Barvinkov and Pokrovsk, the defenses in Donbass is definitely over. There's no chance of the Ukrainians defending the Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, Konstantinivka defensive line. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day and subscribe.